Hey, everybody, and welcome to Declutter Me, a podcast about organizing and decluttering your life. And hello, Shelina.
Hi, Chirag. How are you?
I'm doing good this week. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah. As you can hear, I'm very chirpy this early in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. Should I be worried?
No, it's a good
Oh,
thing
okay,
I'm chirpy and happy.
okay.
No, rather than grouchy with you.
I'm just checking. I prefer to check than not. So
Okay.
today we're kind of going to be talking a lot about photos.
Yeah.
So last week we had Simon Wigzell from Get It Sorted on the show, right? And he was talking about how he focuses primarily on photo organization. Uh,
Yeah.
so, um, but I think his is more physical photos, right, as opposed to digital ones.
Yeah. It sounded like he did that mostly and then organized and decluttered the photos and then scanned them and made them into digital format, and talked to clients about, what each scenario was and put them into folders based on what they said. So I thought that was great what he gave his tips, but I thought it would be good to have us give our view on what we do
Yeah,
digitally and physically, so that people know what you can do in your day-to-day life and also give our tips. We've talked about organizing digital photos before in episode 33, but I
it was a
thought,
while
yeah,
ago.
yeah, it was. So, you can listen to that and we'll put it in the show notes. But we'll also talk about today about the physical and the digital side because there are, there are two sides to it. And you might not want to put all your physical photos into a digital format,
Yeah. Do you have a lot of
So
digital photos though? I'm sorry. Do you have a lot of physical photos? I mean.
I don't have here, I have a few, from the early years, because I've been here 15 years now. So 2005, we were still using cameras, and but it was more digital. It was a digital camera, but we still
Yeah,
had
yeah.
like film, because I used to go to the Al Wassel photo shop, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, it
Oh,
was the
okay.
Al Wassel
Yeah,
one, a Park and Shop, which is
yeah.
now that have been demolished. Um, yes, I was going there, but most of the photos, of course, are at home. So, and my parents are now doing their kind of Swedish death cleaning version because I've told them about it after they got upset about me talking about it. They're now
Mm.
doing it finally in the garage and in the attic. So I went through the photos when I was last in the UK last year. God, so long ago. And I picked photos that I liked to put into a photo album. And I also found duplicates or bad photos and I threw them
Right.
away without telling my parents. So I started doing it, but I didn't do it fully on all the photos. So, excuse me. So there is a method to doing it. And I learned this method from Kathy, who is the um, president of the Photo Organising Association. I think they've got a new name now, which I can't remember. Lovely woman from America, and she came to our conference for the Association of Professional Organisers and Declutterers in the UK, and explained this technique. So I've used that for the physical photos. So it's A, B, and C. So A are the ones you want to keep and put in an album, whether physically or digitally. B are ones you want to keep, and you know just you keep them and maybe scan them and make them digital. And then C is the ones you discard, so you just throw them away immediately. So they'll be the ones where there's red eye, you there's duplicates, it's blurry, you can't see who the people are, or you don't know what it is. It's just like a picture of grass or something, which we have a lot of because my family are from Kenya, and we've gone on a lot of safaris, so there'll be pictures of grass and you'll look and go, was there an animal in that grass? Can we see the animal? Was there a lion sleeping? No, we've just got a picture of grass. So there's a lot of those kind of photos, and people have them for different kind of things. But there's a lot of blurry photos, and I don't know why. When you got your photos developed, people would go through the photos and not get rid of the ones that were blurry or nonsensical, or you know when you take pictures of lights and it kind of what's the word? You know when it
Blurry.
goes all
Yeah.
yeah, there's that all that flary. Why didn't they just get rid of it straight away? I don't understand.
Well, I think this is one of those things where when we look at technology and how it's helped our lives, this is one of those examples, right? Like where back in the day, because you paid for every photo you printed,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know, and I think it's one of those things where like generally the guy who was developing your film for you would typically be able to see in the negative, words I never thought I would use again, would be able to see in the negative if the picture was not going to be good and then not print them. But once it
yeah,
was printed, you paid for whatever prints you got, right? So if it was 30 prints to a film, to a roll, I mean, then you paid for the 30 that came out. And so I think it's
yeah,
one of those things where you just took them and you held them as prized possessions and put them in an album, and that was that, right? I know my parents went through like multiple layers of decluttering their physical photos over the years, because that's what would happen, right? Like they would take pictures of us and of things we were doing or vacations, whatever, and
yeah,
then come back and develop it, and then it would be like, here's the album, and the actually you would get an album free every time you develop something, right? So you would just get the
yeah,
album, those little mini ones anyway, and
yeah,
then you would just stack them, and there were good photos and bad photos and weird angles and all of it in just
yeah,
one album, and then they stayed there until someone decided like, okay, well, let me go through and consolidate these albums in some way, and that's
yeah.
when these pictures would go away, but otherwise they just stayed, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the issue. And the other thing was that when you'd get the bundle of photos in the envelopes, you didn't people didn't put the date on. So now that's the problem, that when you're organizing them, like I looked at photos from the 70s for my parents, you know, from when they were living in the UK and going back on holiday to Kenya or going elsewhere,
Yeah.
and couldn't figure out the year. And you can sort of figure it out by looking at, I could see my cousins and see how old they were and sort of guess that they were 1 or 5 or whatever, you know.
Yeah, or I
And
guess if you went on a vacation, at least you have some semblance of date, right? Like you went to
yeah,
this country on in this year, and you kind of know. But the day
yeah.
to day photos, like you really, I mean, you can't really tell, right? Like, do you know where you were 4 or 5 or 6? Like you're roughly looking not super different,
No,
and
exactly.
so yeah, so it kind of all blurs eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what I did, I went through all the photos and I found photos of family members. So I made one photo album of, you know, family pictures. I've made another one just of friends. So all my friends growing up, the ones, you know, I'm still friends with, I love dearly. Of course, you know, not the friends that I don't want to know anymore. So I made a photo album with them. And then I had another one of travel. So I have, you know, all these different countries I went to since I was a kid. So there was Disney World, Greece, Italy, you know, all these fabulous places,
Mm-hmm.
France and stuff like that. And I put them into another photo album. So I've got a photo album of that, and it's very old school. But I love it. And every so often I will take the albums out. I bought them from Paper Chase. So you could get a big giant one, but I got separate small ones for different scenarios. And they're stacked on my bookshelf. And, you know, I will take it out. I will have a look. I'll take photos to send to friends when it's their birthday and say, here's the photo of us when we were like 20, you know. And they love it. Like that, they're like, I can't believe you've still got these photos. And I'm like, yeah, it's here. And every time, you know, I feel down, I can look at these photos, and it's lovely, you know, to see them. So that for me is what I wanted to do. It's to keep, you know, kind of the nostalgia, and also to keep the memories there. And it's in a better way for me rather than keeping it digitally. You know, of course, everything is, you know, and we're going to talk about digitally and how we store it. But, you know, once you store stuff digitally in albums, you know, I don't go through the photos that often digitally. It's not got that same feeling, you know, as opening up an album. But that's just me. Other people
No, I
might not
think I
feel.
think you're right. I think the nostalgia element's quite high. So obviously because of the lockdown, like this is something my parents are going through right now, right? Like so that my mom is going through a lot of our old albums and going through them. For the nostalgia reasons, not necessarily to declutter.
Yeah,
My mom had this habit of like sort of writing the date behind the photo, like
yeah,
constantly. So luckily, like most of our photos have some kind of dating on them, and you can kind of figure out where they were.
mm,
But this was happening, right? So there's a lot of nostalgia going around our entire family at the moment, because my mom will pull out these pictures, and she literally did this yesterday. She pulled out these old pictures of us, or
Yeah,
of us meeting the family when we'd go on trips, and kind of sharing them, and all of us all of us looking so much younger, of course, and then
yeah,
even the aunts and uncles, like, sort of looking 20 years younger, and then just kind of enjoying that experience again, especially at a time like this when you're looking for things to cheer you up. So
yeah,
so my mom has maintained a lot of those. I mean, now what's happening in the process of her wanting to share this is that she's taking pictures of them and then sharing it, obviously, in a WhatsApp group or whatever.
yeah,
So they're kind of getting kind of pseudo digitalized in the process
yeah.
of that, because now we have a copy somewhere on a phone that we can look up easily. But yeah, actually going through and digitizing the whole set is, I don't think, something that's necessarily going to happen as such. It's going to be more like this, right? Selected photos are going to get pictures of themselves taken and then
Yeah.
shared with the family. So
Well, there is a way to do it. I mean, of course, there's organisers that have them globally who have these um, digital scanners that can scan like 50 photos in a minute or something like
yeah,
that. I think it's even faster now. So there is that possibility, but you have to choose the photos you want to scan. There's no point spending money for somebody to scan the photos, all the photos. Like, you have to decipher, so you have to go through. I think it's more difficult to go through the physical photos once your family members are passed away, especially if you don't know who these people were from the past. Like, for me, I've got a massive family, like, it's ridiculously huge. We've got 51st cousins, and we're on the fifth cousins now. So
right.
that's how big our family is. So, there are so many aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters, especially with my dad. I don't know who all of them are. So my mum knows. She's really good at it. She knows both sides of the family.
Right.
So I have to actually sit with her, I think, when I go back home, and we have to start going through the photos and writing down who these people are and acknowledge if they have any connection to
Mm.
us, enough for us to keep
Yeah,
the photo.
at least get a sense of what you want to maintain and what you don't want to maintain, especially basically. Yeah,
Exactly.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. I mean, it might be lovely for them, but for my brother and I,
Yeah, that attachment isn't there. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, but a cousin of mine who we're close to found a photo of me being held by my mum, and my mum was pregnant with my brother. And the photo was taken in Birmingham before he was born, because I think, yeah, my brother's older than him. But he found the photo looking through old photos, and he sent it by WhatsApp to me. And I said to him, can you send the photo, like this real photo, to mum and dad, because it will mean much more to us
Sure.
than it will to you. And
Yeah.
so he has, which is lovely. And I mean, that photo is now on my screen on my phone, because it's just lovely, of me,
Right.
mum, and my brother. My brother somehow, but he's there. Um, so, and that's going to happen. So if that happens, you can go through and then start saying to people, well, do you want this photo? Because it doesn't mean anything to me, but it will mean a hell of a lot more to you. So you can start doing that. So that's a good way to declutter and to give it to the right people.
Cool. Okay, so now let's talk about sort of the current state of photos, right? Because we're living in an era where each of us has a photo, or rather a very, very good camera in our pockets or our purses, and how are you dealing with sort of all the pictures that you're taking, and sort of organizing them and keeping them maintained, assuming you are maintaining them in some way.
So, yeah, so what I do, and then this is because we had a conversation on a podcast a while back about moving from hard drive to cloud. And literally after we recorded the podcast, I was like, why do I still have
Yeah.
2 hard drives of photos? I still have the hard drives of photos as backup, but now I transferred all the photos onto cloud. So I moved, and I was on Google Drive, Dropbox, and I decided to get rid of all of them and move to iCloud, for my documents. So all my photos are on there. So now I use the photo app as well, and I go through that. But what I do every day, and literally it's sitting on the couch in the evening watching TV, I will go through the photos of the day and delete the multiple photos, because even I take multiple photos,
Okay.
and only keep, I especially take photos of the cats, and I will delete a lot of them, and then the ones that I keep, I will name them. So I'll go onto my computer and quickly go in the info section and name the photo. So whether it's name the cats, or where I went in Dubai, or whatever I did,
Okay. Okay.
I'll name it. So it's easy then to find it, because I properly dated and labeled all my photos before when it was on the hard drive. And so that all got transferred to the cloud. But the new photos don't get names or tags or anything. And the iCloud or the photo app doesn't seem to figure out the faces of the cats yet. So I have to look, it can
Oh,
figure out
you
your
need. Yeah,
face.
it does humans, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it does humans, it doesn't do animals. You think if there's enough photos of a black and white cat that it would know that it's Oreo, but it doesn't. So I have to label all of them. So that's what I do. So I do it every day. Yes, it takes less than 5 minutes to do it all. Really, it doesn't take long. I don't take that many photos in a day. So if you do that every day, literally sit on the couch for 5 minutes or in your bed before you go to bed, do that, then you're sorted, and you've deleted all the multiple pictures. If you take pictures of your kids, I've seen, clients and friends, they'll take pictures of their kids and it'll be the same position but different facial expressions. You don't need that many. Just choose one, like, the one where they look cute or look happy or look funny. You don't need 10 of the same photos. So delete all of them, and then you have less that are going up into the cloud.
Sure. So I'll add one point here, because you talked about going to your computer to add the captions. That's changing in September or in October, whenever the new iOS version comes out. Now you
Right.
can flip up. You just do a swipe up, and there's a little caption section in there where you can set
Oh,
the caption on the phone directly. So
hallelujah.
one point there. So in my case, I do it a bit differently, right? So typically what I try and do is, when I've taken the pictures, when I'm at an event, when I'm out with friends, whatever it is, I generally will just quickly go through and see
Yep.
while I'm taking the pictures. And I kind of know, right? Sometimes I'm like, oh, that was a bad shot, or
Yeah.
whatever. Take 4 or 5, and then just quickly look and be like, okay, I'm dumping these.
Yeah.
And so my organization happens there. I don't do a daily, weekly kind of reorg. And I haven't done one, I don't think, in a long time.
Right.
And then I primarily rely on search to
Yeah.
get through the photos I want to get to, right? So obviously there's a lot of help I get, because of, as you mentioned, a lot of face recognition happens anyway. So and I have that organized, so you can label, by the way, when it at least on iOS, and of course on Google Photos as well for the Android. When
Yep.
you have a collection of people, a collection of faces of one person, you can actually tag and name the person, right? And
Yep.
put the name on it, so you know that these are all pictures of me, and these are all pictures of whoever. And occasionally, it'll suggest to you, oh, we have more pictures of this person. Do you want to confirm those? And
Yep.
the process continues, I think. So that helps. Locations I have my locations on for all my photos whenever I take them. So it automatically puts a geo tag on all my photos, because most of my photos anyway, well, actually all of my photos are taken on my phone, which means roughly I know where I've taken them. And so I can always quickly look by location. So there's multiple ways. You can look at the map view and pick the location in
Yeah.
Dubai where the photo is, and then kind of break it down by year.
Yeah.
Or you can just do a search, right, for certain places, and it'll kind of show you this thing. And then now it started recognizing elements in the photos as well, right? Since over the last couple of years, it started recognizing elements in the photos as well. So now it knows if I have photos of food, it knows if I have photos of scenery and mountains and beaches and whatever
Oh, does
else.
it?
Yeah, so you can actually search for, and you can type the word beach, and ideally it should showcase to you pictures you've taken with a large pool of water normally. So
Oh, I'll have to
yeah.
check on the food thing. I'll have to
Right. Yeah,
check.
I've definitely done it for
I think
food.
on the food
I've seen even success. I've actually searched for coffee, and it's pulled up like all my coffee pictures, and
all your
I've taken
coffee.
quite a bit.
So many.
Right. So that's been interesting as well, in terms of just helping me figure out. And this is about like sort of getting to the picture quickly, right? So for me,
Yeah.
and this is again how I process my email. This is how I process my photos as well. Is I have a rough sense of where I know either when the picture was taken or where the picture was taken, and between these two, and generally sometimes in combination of both of these things, I can roughly figure out or I can get to the picture that I'm looking for at any given time.
But see, I find when I do a search, I don't find things as fast as I want to. And with me, I want to find everything within 5 seconds. So if it takes too longer than that, my patience
You need
is
to refine your
just
search
more.
parameters.
Yeah, so that's why I label
Yeah.
everything in it, so it's easier for me. I don't geotag, just because of, I don't know, I had some privacy thing that I was like, I don't want to tell them where I am all the time. So I only do it for when I'm on holiday. So last year I was in Florida, and in all these places, Disney World. So it was tagging on that, but I don't generally do it here. And actually, it would make it life a bit more easier actually if I did do it here.
So there's a way, by the way, to set in privacy settings to only allow geotagging on the pictures you've clicked, right, and nowhere else. So that's
Right.
what I have turned on, which is to say, like, yeah, tag my pictures that I know, and that stays in my account,
Right.
encrypted, etc. So that's the reason for doing that. Is just so that I can. Prior to moving to iCloud and stuff, is I was using sort of the iPhoto, which is now Photos on the Mac,
Yeah.
to organize all my pictures. So that at a time when I was taking pictures on a digital camera and then kind of importing them, and that's when the organization process would happen, right? I would go through
Yeah.
import, for example, 100 pictures, go through them at the same time, and cull them down to, let's say, I don't know, 80 or 70 pictures that I wanted to keep.
Yeah.
Kind of import them into my library and then kind of organize them, right? So some of them I would tag them, some of them I put dates on them, or most of the times the dates would get imported, and then I would tag other things in them.
Yeah.
Ever since I've kind of stopped using that, so I think it's been now maybe 4 years, 3-4 years, right, where I've just essentially taken all my pictures with my iPhone. I've kind of relied more and more on saying, okay, when I'm taking the picture, let's make sure whatever information needs to be there. So that's date, that's location generally. And now, of course, search allows for sort of further digging. I have all the information I need to be able to look up a picture at any time. So I don't use albums and stuff much. It's just kind of a general pool of pictures that I can just quickly sort through. I have, like I said, I generally have a rough idea of when I've taken that picture, especially like when it's. So if it's a location-based picture, like if it's a trip, even if it's a trip I make often, I roughly know, like, I'm looking for a picture when I went to India in X year, and I can just quickly go look it up. Right, it comes up.
Yeah.
It comes
There
up
is that.
easy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm using the Photos app because, I've just only started using it since I moved to iCloud. But because I had everything already in folders, and I'm still maintaining those folders. So I'm still moving pictures into food folder or cats folders and holidays and stuff like that. And if for me, and also because then I could share, say, the holiday photos from last year, because we went as a big family, I was able to share that folder, and they were able to add photos into that folder as well. So there's things like that, and I just like it being organized like that. It's always been like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to change a habit of a lifetime. I mean, I was doing that even with physical photos before putting everything into dates. And I'm like your mum, I would date the photos at the back. So that's made my life, all the photos that I owned since I was a kid or since I was a teenager and was processing, I've always had them organized. So I was like this. So that's made it easier for me to make it digital. But for their kind of things, it was more, it's harder. But yeah, as I just said, it's a habit, to cull down your photos, whether physically or digitally. But you have to build that habit. It's going to take, a month to build that habit. But if you do it every day, do like you do, as soon as you take the photos, start going through and start deleting. It's easy for us to do it, but it might not be so easy for others, especially when you've got kids around. So if you do it in the evening, it's, when you've got a bit of breath, they've gone to sleep, you can sit down and watch Netflix, chill. And
I was gonna say our Netflix and declutter method.
yeah, exactly. And it's my favorite method. So do that, and then you spend 5 minutes instead of spending a lot of time later with dealing with a huge amount of photos. Do it now, tag them when you can,
Yeah, and
late.
it makes that finding easier, right? Like, we're talking about searching through your photos or whatever it is. Like, it makes that so much easier at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, when you're trying to do that. I think a part of it also is, like, my habits have changed just because of the way how we look at photos has changed, right? So there was a time when I was the main person taking photos in most of my groups, whether it was family or friends. Back when I had the digital camera also, but I was more, yeah, as I'm sure everybody knows by now that listens to me, that I was also generally on the latest iPhone compared to the rest of my group, right? Generally,
You
now
were.
it's no longer the case, but back then, so what would end up happening is I would be kind of the source of all the photographs. And so
Yeah.
that required me to kind of keep things in albums and make it easy. All the search functions and stuff, and even the sharing functions were not as prevalent at the time, right? Like now, now it's great, right? Like now it kind of knows who the person is, and it knows that you've shared them pictures with them in the past, and it kind of groups the pictures and says, "Do you want to share this group of pictures and send it to this person?" It doesn't
Yeah.
even you don't even have to build an album or anything, right? It's kind of automatically doing a lot of that stuff for you, and family members who are on iCloud themselves and so on, like it's kind of figured out, right? Like I send pictures via iCloud to this family, and then when I
Yeah.
have a group of pictures with them, they're like, "Hey, do you want to send it again to this cousin of yours?" Right? Like
Yeah.
it's made life super easy. So that's helped, but also now everybody takes pictures, right? Like the amount of pictures I send has been cut down drastically, right?
Yeah.
Occasionally, like I'll send one picture to somebody because I've taken a picture. Or so, when we take a group photo when we're out together, like it gets taken
Yeah.
on one or two cameras. But otherwise, everybody's taking their own pictures of food, and everybody's taking their own pictures of the outing, and nobody's leaning on me for pictures anymore. So my requirement to keep things in albums so I can share it with people, I mean, it's literally it's stopped.
Well,
It's
the
at a
thing is, as
zero.
well, yeah, with sharing the photos, like now we don't physically share. I mean, even when we've gone out, and we don't tend to share because I upload everything onto our Facebook, and my Facebook is personal page is just for close friends and family only, and I will put it up there for because there are connections between different friends and family in so many ways, so they get to see it, and then that's it. I don't
Exactly. Yeah.
share it on
Yeah.
WhatsApp or anything. It's all there on one social media platform or, sometimes on Instagram as well, but mostly it's on Facebook for them to see and them to be tagged and their family to see it and friends as well. So it's just easy. It's
Yeah.
just there out
I mean,
there. If you don't want to be tagged, you can untag yourself. If
yeah, that's
it's
what I
just
mean. I think the behaviors have changed in many ways, right? Like between
mm,
everybody getting phones and everybody being on most of the social networks now. But even in general, like now, I mean, outside of events, right, outside of major events like weddings and stuff, which is a whole different ball game.
yeah,
But for our day-to-day stuff, like even when I send pictures to people about something I've done, I send one picture, maybe two. Like I don't send like 50 anymore, right? Like
yeah,
that's those days are gone, and so
yeah,
that's just an easy share over WhatsApp or sometimes on Instagram, for example, in a DM.
yeah,
That like this again, like I said, for me, so the idea of keeping things in separate albums and stuff is, like I said, it's gone to zero.
yeah.
I do everything. So for me, it's like it's one big inbox in which I manage everything, and now you can tag them, of course, and so on. So
Yeah. But as you can see, two people, two different ways. I have folders still. He doesn't have folders.
it's really
I
funny.
love
I was listening to a podcast last week, and there was a whole debate. Like, so this person, a bunch of them were like, "Why do you still use albums? Like, who still uses albums?" And then so he put out a Twitter survey and to see how many people use albums versus letting the app kind of help sort things out. It was just an
yeah.
interesting conversation. But anyway,
I think we'll have
uh,
to put it out on the Declutter Me
we
accounts
should
later
try that.
today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up here. Would love to hear from you guys as well. I mean, are there other things you do when in terms of managing your photos that are different from either me or Shelina?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about it. And of course, you can find all of the previous episodes of this show in your favorite podcast player, and now also on YouTube. So just look for Declutter Me
Yes.
wherever you want to listen. And we'll see you next week.
All right then. Bye.
Bye.